time, and I finally got myself to do these videos. And for now, it's because I had nothing else to do on a Friday afternoon, and isn't that a little sad? Anyways, I think it only was appropriate for me to start off reviewing levels with the level that I've just recently showcased on my channel, being Holy Moly Guacamole by Silver, and here's the 2.1 ID. And my first impression of this level, without even looking at it, was that I don't think Wowzers Holy was a level that honestly needs to be remade, given both a combination of today's standards and expectations, and that the old level had many aspects in which I think that a remake nowadays won't be able to capture sufficiently. But when I saw the world's first vegetable demon, Holy Moly Guacamole, I was pleasantly surprised by what Silver was able to pull out of a remake of this level. Not only did he clean up a lot of the original level's design, he also managed to introduce a lot of his own concepts, which I think really build upon the old ideas that much more. And in addition, he also maintained the original feel of the colors, like right here with the purple and green. And he also managed to introduce even more colors than the original, which I think is a pretty nice accomplishment given what this level originally was. And while this level overall, the quality of this level I think is really consistent across the board. Well, mainly because I think because the parts can be debated to be sort of repetitive, but I think what makes up for that repetition, which can be seen in later parts, like right here, is the rather intense pulse work, especially given the song and the level, and also the movements, and also the very subtle movements as well, like for instance in the arrows in this part, and in the first part, let me find it. The first part, the pillars. Give me 1 second. In the first part, in the pillars at the top, in the top and bottom of the blocks here, I think those additions combined with the pulses really add that much more variety overall to this level, and it makes the level pretty consistently interesting and not boring really at any point in the level to watch. And I also do like this middle rainbow part and his complete do-over interpretation of it. Oops, sorry, that's Twitter. And I think it worked a lot better when I first thought about it. Like, the colors really work for the rainbow, and I think even the dark rainbow stuff in the background, which I normally don't really like dark rainbow for reasons I'll explain later, also really work with the way he used the rainbow elements in this part. Alright, welcome to the part of the video where I'll be taking a close look at this level's design, as well as some other small details that I think are worthy of being pointed out. And I'll be playing the video at half speed for this. And from a design creator's perspective, I feel like it's important to appreciate small details in levels like these, is because I believe it's in the details that can discern a really good level compared to a rather average level. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So for the first part, the thing that mostly stands out to me is how Silver chose to add effects into the blocks right here, where my cursor are, because, well, given that this part in this level and in the original, they both don't have that much going for it, I think it's a really nice touch, especially for a remake in which you are supposed to well improve on the level, in my opinion. And I do appreciate that he was very brave and chose to use player colors for this part, and I think they really work because, well, given one is that the whole part is gray, and I think it also adds that much more liveliness to the part and makes the overall level more unique because, well, a lot of levels these days, I don't think so at least, use that much player color anymore. And so for those reasons, I really appreciate the effects in this part. As you can see right here, it happened again. And anyways, let's move on. The main thing that stands out to me is how Silver managed to make this part's design in compared to the original, I think, a lot cleaner, as well as making it more interesting in the blocks that he chose to use. Like, for example, the most obvious thing for cleanliness, I think, is that he turned off object glow on pretty much all the objects here. But beyond that, small things such as this black glow usage, I think his black glow usage and the opacity that he set the black glow to is really good. Like, it's still very obviously visible to have that black glow shading effect, and it's not so prominent that it just becomes obtrusive and gives too much contrast between the two sides of the black glow, in this case being the metal objects and the background blocks underneath them. Speaking of the background blocks, I really like his choice of block pattern that he introduced in this level compared to the original, which are these yellow intersecting lines kind of pattern. Not only do they add that much more texture to the overall feel of the blocks, but they're also, again, not too obtrusive in terms of both color and just like overtaking the main part of the design, which to me is still, just like the original, is still the metal blocks, these default slopes, and the red blocks right here. And as in usual Silver fashion, he added he made the red blocks feel a lot like 2.0, except cleaner, with his usage of like the black's 45-degree slopes and also these squigglies at the very top of the blocks. And also, one thing I'd like to point out about this part is that there's very little glow usage in the level overall. And I think given what this level is going for, that's a pretty big accomplishment, because, well, now the standards nowadays kind of dictate that it's kind of hard to make something look nice without glow in terms of like just raw, straightforward design. And I think Silver did a really good job of making this part feel bright and vibrant, as well as being lively, as indicated with the inclusion of such things like let me scroll back a little bit, like the moving red pillars in both the top and bottom of the blocks, like these. And I also really do like his use of 2.0 blocks, like right next to this red pillar, for example. I think they really work as in terms of introducing some really nice shapes and overall make the blocks feel that much more interesting. And once again, I do really like his inclusion of player color arrows. I think it's just a nice touch in general. And I think that's about it in terms of this part, as for what I have to say. Moving on into the UFO, I think this is, well, the design here it gets even better than the previous ship part. Like, for instance, his use of this kind of slope pattern, the one with the black blobs along it, I think it makes like the air, quote unquote, part of the level feel kind of messy in a sense, while having the design inherently be really simple, which I think is crucial for this level, given that, well, to keep the charm of the original Wowzers Holy, you kind of can't really include like a complex background of sorts. And I think his choice of slopes here really makes up for the fact that, well, there isn't too many background elements happening in this level, but it still feels filled in a sense. And in addition, I do really appreciate how brave he was by adding glow above the background spikes here. Normally, I do not like glow over solid black. I think that I've made it pretty clear over the amount of time I've been interacting with this community. But in this case, I think they really work because they're not only are they done in really small proportions in terms of like just raw size, but I think they also make the black ground spikes blend in more with the metal blocks and the default slope blocks, which are colored to object this whole time and are, well, that much brighter than just black. And speaking of the metal slopes, although it's kind of obvious given that if you look at the top and bottom here that they're on the same layer, but that's just a small nitpick. I really do like how in the pulses, Silver managed to include a third color for the metal blocks in contrast to the standard, I guess, object color, which are the other blocks. And normally I feel like mixing in a third color without using some sort of blending or some sort of glow thing is pretty difficult. And I think the fact that he managed to pull it off here just shows how you just is a really good example of how you can make of how you can still make colors like these blend really well together without too complex of things going on to make them work. Once again, the inclusion of player color arrows, I love it. It really takes you back. It really is like a throwback to past times. And another throwback to past times, I think, is also with the screen effects. So there's the effect of the side of the screen with how the blocks enter and exit. I think in my opinion, that's a really underappreciated aspect of creating nowadays. And I would definitely like to see those used in future levels. And I think this level is a great example that even in today's standards they can still add a really nice touch to levels. Anyways, for this part, I think there's not much more for me to say because, well, it's really similar to the design parts that we just looked at. And once again here, I do like Silver's variety of slopes here. It does make the air part of the level feel that much more filled by including the more complex texture. Anyways, moving on to the rainbow part of the level. Normally, I don't really like dark rainbow things. I think it's mainly because, well, if you take a rainbow and make all of the colors really dark, it just feels sort of like muddy and too gloomy for what I think a rainbow is supposed to represent. But in this case, I think Silver did a really good job at making such a dark rainbow type deal work with things like how he made all the blocks, object lines here, really bright, and how he added glow to the top edges of them to make them almost feel like default blocks too. I think the brightness is what the brightness being mixed with the dark colors here is what really makes the rainbow of this part work. Combined with the really bright rainbow gradients as well, it sort of just distracts from the dark rainbow elements that are happening elsewhere, like in the background waterfalls. Although, if I did have one suggestion, it would probably be that I would try to like make these solid rainbow gradients work better with the blocks. Like for me, this level hasn't really I feel like these glow gradients, they're just sort of like there, and they're not that well mixed with the blocks, like how Silver did here with the metal blocks and these block patterns as well. But overall, I think that's a minor nitpick. I still think the solid gradients do work. And I think that's the end of what I have to say for this part. I also do really like how he constructed the ground spikes as well. They're simple and they work. And I think the glow on them doesn't really stand out as much, but they're still visible enough to be a really nice touch. As for the next part, I think it's mostly similar to what I've already said up to this point, so I'll just skip through it. And once again, I do like how he made such a bright background work while having not while inherently not having too much going on in terms of air decoration. And similar things here. And also this third coin is really difficult, by the way. Like, I'm pretty sure this is like close to like a frame perfect place where you have to click inside of this fake block to curve up enough so that you can clear this next pillar. And for the last part of this level, well, I think it's standout for, well, I mean, obviously there wasn't an ending part in the original Lazarus Holy. But nevertheless, I think this additional ending part in this remake is still a really nice addition, not only because of the quality, but I think it ends the level at like a sort of more reasonable place in the song. And as for this level, I think the highlight of it is definitely how you have the circular objects in this part all orbiting around the biggest circles, which are these which in this case the big circle surrounding this block. And I also do like the inclusion of puzzle pieces in this part too, which I think is also something you don't really see that often anymore. And in this case, I think they do really work. While, I mean, the puzzle pieces are just presented directly without having too many details added to them, I think they still speak for themselves. And as for this part, I mean, I don't really have much to say other than that this is just classic Silver style, and I do appreciate how he uses his blocks and very subtle amounts of glow, like on this puzzle piece, for example. Yeah, I think that concludes this part of the level review. That concludes my review of this level, Holy Moly Guacamole by Silver. It's currently released on the 2.1 servers, and I think it can definitely get rated and even featured as well in 2.1. And I look forward to seeing more released levels from Silver. I think he's a really underappreciated creator for the style that he does in this time and age. And as for more level review videos like these, again, this is my first time doing it. I know I stuttered a lot in terms of talking and dragging on too much, which I'll try to avoid in the future, but I had a lot of fun making this videos regardless. And let me know in the comments if you guys have any levels that you would like me to review, preferably design levels, obviously, coming from my background. And yeah, I think that concludes this video, so thanks for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.